Welcome back to Working Class Minds. Today we have Dylan Schubert here, another blue-collar endurance training coach. Working Class Minds is just kind of a series where we really kind of dig into the mental side of things, the physical side of things, really just everything training related, and it helps give good lessons and good takeaways for just athletes around, because there's just a lot of bad information out there. And so yeah, just really fortunate to have Dylan here to share some of his knowledge. And yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
Dylan.
of course, happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure. So Dylan, you're how many time All-American at Furman?
2-time, 3 if you count this past time.
Right.
Honorable mention, so I'm going to say 2.
yeah, absolutely. So a lot of great achievements in the collegiate space, but before that, I kind of want to talk a little bit about your high school experience. You know, you ran in Colorado in high school. A lot of Colorado kids, I feel like, don't get enough respect nationally because they run these times all year that are just up at altitude, and then they come down for the championships, and then they really show that they're some of the most fit athletes in the country. Could you talk a little bit about your just general high school training? Because I feel like that just doesn't get enough looks when it comes to like just a nationally competitive guy like yourself. He was an NXN guy, by the way. Where were you at NXN?
I was 14th. My senior year, made it as a junior as well. But yeah, I mean, when I was in high school, I would say, honestly, when we were both in high school, I think a lot has changed since then. I'm a huge believer in less is more with a lot of the ways you can approach training in high school.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the stuff I did was just learning what tempo effort feels like, what threshold effort feels like. I think the biggest thing that I see with a lot of my teammates even is they get to college and they really have never truly done an actual threshold workout. Everything in high school was above and beyond any of those efforts, and so I think they have a bit more of a learning curve with in terms of dialing things back.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, the times are much quicker than when I was in high school, much quicker. Just the density of everybody is quicker. So I think there's certainly a component that you almost have to maybe hit training a little bit harder just to get noticed, which is the sad truth of how it is now.
Absolutely.
And so I do think that it's easy for me to say that I'm a big advocate and less is more, but nowadays it's almost like you can't really do that unless you're extremely talented, which
sure.
I wasn't. I mean, I for sure would have had to be training a lot harder than I did in high school if I were in high school today.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just that's an important truth to realize, but I don't think that should scare any high schoolers. I think it can be scary because there's a lot more density, a lot more people running fast.
A lot of competition.
Yeah. I still believe that you don't need to go too far above 50 or 60 miles a week in high school. I think that the more room you can leave yourself to grow, I think it will just really help you in the future, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I think just, some of the soft skills that a lot of really good kids in high school don't necessarily learn until they get to college, and if they don't figure it out, then like their performance can start to go in the wrong direction. Just that calibration piece,
mm-hmm.
understanding what different efforts mean. Like there could be like a 9 flat kid that goes to the same school as another 9 flat kid, and then they go to work out, but one understands how to work out versus the other one just only knows one gear, and that's like pedal to the floor like all the time. Like you said, like less is more. The kid that understands that there's multiple gears to things, they're going to be more likely to grow long term, I feel like. And so that calibration of effort,
definitely.
Sure.
I would say kind of a term I like to use is like you see a lot of kids kind of shotgun training
mm-hmm.
is kind of the word I like to describe it as, where you've just got, it's not very polarized. You've got just this blend, all the zones are just blending. Every day is a race. Every
mm-hmm.
workout is just from, maybe it's a little controlled at the beginning, but then you're working way too hard at the end. So
mm-hmm.
I think one thing that a lot of kids, it's good to learn in high school is feeling the right effort and and you will get better adaptations and better rewards for, and better longevity,
right,
for properly like polarizing your training. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the competition a little bit and how like the game has changed. Obviously, super shoes have played a role in kids running faster.
Sure. Yeah.
And then obviously just more general knowledge of training is getting out there. And so kids are starting to understand that, hey, this like 90 style 4 by mile, 3 by mile at 5K race pace with short rest, like that's not necessarily how we get there. What's something you would say also played a role for you in high school in terms of just like, because you did learn how like threshold and things like that felt. What did your coach do? Let me ask you that.
Well, I would say the big thing to that, and I think it's harder now to do this, is to not worry about what everyone else is doing, because there's so much information out there. And I think what we're really trying to do here is try and like help a lot of these high school kids like sort, or just runners in general, sort through a lot of the information that's out there. When I was in high school, Strava was still a thing. It wasn't as big as it was, or big as it is today, but that makes it so easy to see what everyone else is doing. And I think it's important. My coach was just big on, okay, that's great, that's what they're doing, but like, you're a different athlete. Everyone is different from each other.
For sure.
And I think there's no clear-cut answer or clear-cut workout or training plan. It's just the whole part of the game is like how your body responds to the training and what makes you feel good, what doesn't make you feel good, what your strengths and weaknesses are. And I was lucky that my coach in high school was caught up with a lot of the terminology and stuff, and he was just very adamant about me focusing on what I was doing.
Yes.
And don't play the comparison game to other athletes or what other people are doing.
Totally.
Yeah, just having faith in your training. Yeah.
That's huge. I actually talked recently with my old assistant coach from Florida State, and now he's had a lot of recent success with his group at UVA, Trevor Dunbar. And I was asking him about workouts. I was picking his brain a little bit, but one of the biggest things that I learned from that conversation was how much the buy-in really matters, and how as a coach you can get, because let's say everyone's doing the same training, the coach that gets the athletes to believe that they are training the smartest, or if you take 90s Colorado, right, Mark's team, the hardest, that running with the Buffaloes team. It's the buy-in factor that is so important in that way. And so now I want to talk a little bit more about that comparison piece, because I think that's huge, and I think a lot of younger athletes definitely struggle with that. We see it all the time in college.
Oh, yeah.
Like, think about how much, like, our teammates...
I've done it.
Yeah, we all do it. Yeah. We talk about, like, oh, like, this team did this workout, and we're trying to, like, decipher, like, what they're doing just based off of, like, some Strava splits. We got no clue.
You have no
like,
idea.
You can't see them with your eyes. Like, you might as well just save the mental energy and move that energy towards confidence in yourself and confidence in your boys,
Yes, exactly.
That kind of thing.
For sure.
Yeah, what's your thought on like collegiate teams in comparison to other schools?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough balance, because I think you can gain a lot knowing kind of how other teams are approaching things or other programs. I think there's a lot to gain. It's certainly not good to just fully tune it out, but I think just being good at navigating what's out there, and you pick up on things to learn and maybe ask questions, and a good coach will always collaborate with ideas you have, and you can ask them a question and they'll say, well, I think this makes more sense in our conditions, like this is why we're doing this.
It's another thing.
Yeah.
Another
And
piece, location.
So location, just the timing of everything, it's all so different. So it's easy to get caught up in the comparison game, but definitely, like you said, the buying in is, I mean, you see it in like a good example might be like bodybuilding, for example, like back then versus now. I mean, everyone had their own approach and their own theories to like how to see muscle growth and results and progress. And like and like I think the same thing can be applied for running. Yeah, you got to buy into what you believe in.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's huge too, because it's like sometimes I think people feel the need to go to the well, and it's so easy to, right? Because people want to work hard, people want to do good in training, and they think, you know, I have to simulate the pain of the race to actually like see the result. I think that buy-in factor and being able to convince people that it's not about going to the well as much as it's, you know, just this workout is preparing us for this distance, and here's why. And so that's up to the coach to deliver that. It's so key and so important.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So now I want to talk a little bit about some things that, some mistakes that people make, especially we talk about, like, you know, just too much information being out there, and there's a lot of metrics that people try to like use as a crutch and lean on in order to like give them feedback or a number that correlates to their fitness, right? VO2,
right.
heart rate,
Sure.
lactate, things like that. What are and even if it's more on like the technical, like sciencey side of things, I'd like to hear your thoughts on just metrics and whatnot.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is a mistake that I personally have made, which is when I'm feeling good, the desire to want to push, just keep pushing workouts, keep pushing volume. And I think that's led me to get into trouble because it isn't sustainable. And that's one thing we talk about is the training being sustainable. And so one of the biggest mistakes I've made is when I'm feeling good, trying to get in the extra the extra percent, extra 2%, 3%, like how far can we push it? And then I'll get something come up. So I think I can't stress enough how important it is to find like a volume number that works for you and not try and waver up. And if you have something on your grid or your training plan, only go less. Don't try and do more, because
always conservative.
Yes. Always, like, if you're not feeling great, back off. But if you're feeling good, just call it at the workout. It can be a B+ workout. I think just B+ days are important. I get caught up in getting too much confidence from an A+ killer workout, but I don't need that. That might make me miss a week or 2 or 3 or whatever. So I think just the B+ workout, which is Mark Coogan, the coach of LE St. Pierre, that's one of his preaches is B+ days, just day in, day out, week in, week out. Yeah, and it works. Yeah. And then about the metrics, like you mentioned.
I was going to lactate. Like, let's say, like you're sitting in a good pot. What's a good pocket for you, like on a T day?
So for me, let's say I really started using a lactate meter. I don't think it's necessary to be successful. You need to have a lactate meter. Yeah, but I kind of wanted to get into that a little bit. And so for the double T days in the morning, I would kind of look for around 2 millimoles by the end of the session. And then in the afternoon, I would look for around 3 millimoles, just kind of a little harder or a little higher intensity in the evening. But I would say that an important mistake that I see a lot with the metrics is using the metrics like heart rate. Like, let's say it's low for a workout, or lactate, let's say it's low for the paces for a workout, using that as a definition of like how successful the workout was, like a grade, using that to grade. Yes. Yeah. And that's just completely wrong. It should be a way to guide the sessions and calibrate your body as the main instrument. And those are instruments you're using to make sure you're finding the right effort and feeling out the intensity as well. It's not to define the success of a workout. And your heart rate being low and your lactate being low are not always good things. Like, they can also be signs of overtraining or things like that. So I think that's a very important thing to realize.
Absolutely. And I feel like a good way to put that into a phrase that's like a good takeaway, I like to say this. I like to say tool, not a crutch.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah. Tool.
So, and it is, and it's like, it's helped you quite a bit So
Yeah, definitely.
all right, now I want to kind of shift towards you being a coach, because you've worked a little bit with like some athletes training under blue collar. How has that been for you, and what's been the most just rewarding part about it in terms of like feeling, or maybe your kids haven't necessarily ran those PRs yet, which they're going to, but
Right.
what's that like for you?
Well, it's been super rewarding for me, just working with kids that want to get better, and seeing that like a lot of them weren't as lucky as I was in high school that had a coach that knew what they were doing.
Totally. Yeah.
It's very few coaches and high school programs very few high school programs will have a coach that knows kind of what they're doing, or that holds organized practice over the summer or whatever. It's just a lot of kids don't have a ton of direction. And so I think that's been really cool, just seeing the kids take away good information and good things that even if they might have a coach during the season, they at least can apply these sorts of things that I wish I learned even in high school that I didn't.
What do you think one of those lessons would be for like the young viewer? What's a good takeaway for them that you wish you would have known when you were in high school?
The biggest thing I wish I did more of in high school was like economy work, whether it's like the strides or just the drills and things along those lines. I think once I got to college, I was not a super speedy or fast athlete, and I think that it took me a little bit to kind of have the efficiency and develop the speed to run under 4 minutes in the mile. I think that was something that I kind of had a misconception about, that I was like a slow 10K guy, like too slow twitch, too aerobic.
A lot of people
based.
think that,
right? And I would say that you shouldn't place those shackles on yourself. Like I think anyone can break 4, and I wish in high school there was more sort of work along those lines that I did, more work along the efficiency and
rhythm,
neuromuscular stuff. So I think that's one thing when I got to college that really changed for me and helped me realize that I wasn't like a slow runner. I wasn't like, I did have some speed. It just took a little more of the right approach to unlock it, if that makes sense. And then another thing I was going to mention about what it's been like to coach these kids is that I actually think that sometimes when I prescribe something to someone, I think I wish I coached myself, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
You're so confident
because
in what you're giving. You're like, this isn't,
sometimes like I will want to do something that's dumb, but I don't really like second guess myself, because I just think I wish it's given me more of a lens to look at what I'm doing.
Super cool.
And like take a step back in my own head on like, is this really smart, if that makes sense? Because if I was if I just cloned myself and had me in front of me, like what would I do? And so I think that's been probably the biggest thing I've learned.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. No,
I don't know if you feel that at all.
I love that. That's sick.
Yeah.
So you mentioned not putting shackles on yourself as an athlete. And I think when it comes to that, in like the perfect storm of what makes someone good, there's the coach believing that the athlete can get it done. And I can already feel like that energy coming off of you, just like talking about it. And then there's the athlete believing in themselves, partially because of like the training and the people around them, but also because the coach believes in them so much. How important do you think that is? And just to close it off, talk about that, just like the mutual belief.
Yeah, for sure. I think it takes a good coach to really open the athlete's eyes and facilitate that belief and bring it out of them. It's not the coach's job to force it out of the athlete. It's the coach's job to kind of facilitate that.
Foster it.
Yeah, foster it, exactly. And add more fire or add more fuel to the flame.
Totally.
The coach is just that's what there for, but it's on the athlete in the end. So I think, yeah, that's a super important message, and I think another reason not to focus on what everyone else is doing, because you just really do have to believe in yourself. And one thing I love that so Michael Phelps, obviously a stellar athlete, and one of the things I really like that he says about trying to get some of that belief is every time he walks through a doorway, he would say something like positive to himself, like I'm a strong swimmer, or I'm the best swimmer in the world, or I'm better than this person, or anything along those lines. And then he would say that after over and over repeating that, like, he would start to believe it, so I think it's huge. It's huge. Like, you can't do the work if you're not, I mean, sure, some days you don't want to do it and you're not motivated, but motivation follows the action. And so I think that's a huge piece that separates, like, the really, really good athletes from, like, the ones who just kind of, like, go through the motions, for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Dang, I think that was a phenomenal takeaway, and we'll probably cut it there, man.
Yeah, but, sounds good.
Yeah, so thank you guys for watching. Dylan is another phenomenal coach on the coaching staff here at Blue Collar Endurance Training. We're really excited for the fall. We're going to have a lot of kids running PRs, and it's only our first cross-country season, and hopefully more to come. If you're interested in any type of training, adaptive coaching from Dylan, myself, or Carl Thiessen, just visit bluecollaret.com. We'll leave that stuff in the description. And yeah, just check out our socials too, because there's so much informational content there. It's just a library that keeps on stacking and building, and we're really, like, just trying to change the sport in that way, get the right information out there. And so yeah, I'm just fortunate to have a guy like this that sees the vision, and wants to do good things in the sport as well. So
yeah.
Thank you so much, Dylan.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it, man.
Appreciate it.
Yep.